Epictetus was born a slave, and while he was still another man's property, his leg was broken and never set right, so he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Around 100 AD, in the port city of Nicopolis on the western coast of Greece, this former slave stood in front of a room of wealthy, educated men who had traveled for weeks to study philosophy under him. They had read Plato. Some had studied with other teachers and were certain they already knew something. And Epictetus, looking at these men, gave them a single sentence. Not a welcome, not a curriculum, one sentence, and he told them that if they understood it completely, truly completely, they would not need the rest of philosophy at all. But here is what most people who quote Epictetus never tell you. That sentence contains a Greek word that English cannot translate cleanly, and the translation almost everyone carries in their heads is precisely wrong. Wrong in a way that makes the philosophy useless. Hold on to that word. We will come back to exactly what it means and what it doesn't mean, and why the difference between the two is the difference between a teaching that rewires your life and one that simply decorates it. Because that single cut, the one Epictetus drew on day one, is the only real diagnostic for whatever you have been carrying this week without knowing what to do with it. The sentence was this: some things are in our control, others are not. 5 words in English. In Greek, 2, hēmin, and hēmin. What is up to us? What is not up to us? Epictetus considered this the gateway to all of philosophy, not a preliminary point, not chapter 1 of a longer argument, but the thing itself. And he was precise about what falls on each side. In our control, our judgments, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, everything the mind does from the inside. Not in our control, the body, reputation, wealth, position, other people's opinions, the entire external world, without exception. Most people nod at that and move on. They think they've understood it. They haven't. Here is the pattern interrupt, the thing that stopped even the educated students cold. Epictetus never said the external world doesn't matter to you. He said it is not in your power. Those are not the same claim. The misreading turns Stoicism into emotional suppression. Don't feel things. Don't care. Detach. That is not what Epictetus taught. What he taught was a different kind of relationship to the external, not detachment, but accurate accounting. You see the thing as what it is, not as larger than it is, not as something with authority over your character. You act on what you can reach. You release what you cannot change. That sequence, act, release, is the whole philosophy. But you cannot run it if you haven't first sorted the thing into the correct column. The students who struggled most in Epictetus's school were not the lazy ones. They were the ones who kept placing things in the wrong column. A man would arrive, motivated, serious, ready, convinced that philosophy had failed him because his reputation was destroyed, or his career had collapsed, or someone he trusted had abandoned him. And Epictetus would ask him one question. Not, how do you feel about this? Not, what happened to you? He would ask, which column did you put it in? Because once you answer that question honestly, the emotional knot begins to loosen, not through willpower, not through suppression, but because the suffering that will not move is almost always suffering attached to a thing placed in the wrong column, an outcome you have labeled yours when it was never yours to begin with. There is an older ethical tradition, one that runs through several wisdom lineages that are not Stoic by name, but arrive at the same fundamental architecture, that describes this kind of clear-eyed accounting as the beginning of intelligence, not the end of feeling. The idea is that a person who cannot make this distinction is not a weak person or a bad person. They are a person whose capacity for clear sight has not yet been trained to recognize the edge of their own domain. Once you see that edge, something clarifies that no quantity of motivation or positive thinking practice can produce. You stop fighting territory that was never yours to hold. In a moment, I am going to give you the exact 2-step method Epictetus described for his students. The actual practice, not the concept. Because philosophy that stays at the level of concept is the most useless kind of knowledge there is. But first, here is what nobody tells you about the dichotomy of control. Most of what you are suffering over right now is not in the hard column. It is not cleanly external, not cleanly outside your reach. It lives in a gray zone, and that gray zone is where Epictetus spent 90% of his teaching. The job, the relationship, the health situation that is partly yours to manage and partly not. The conversation you keep rehearsing. The reason Epictetus's first lesson was a sentence and not a list is that the list changes every time. The sentence doesn't. And the only skill that transfers across every situation is learning to make the cut yourself, accurately, without flinching. Here is the practice. 2 steps, and Epictetus was explicit about both. Step 1. Before you react to anything, any insult, any loss, any outcome you did not want, pause and sort it. Say it plainly, out loud if you need to. What in this situation is genuinely up to me? Not what you wish were up to you. What structurally actually is. Your response. Your next action. What you choose to believe about this person's behavior. Those belong to you. The other person's choices, the outcome you hoped for. How this looks to people who weren't there, those do not. Step 2. Act on your column. Release the other column without apology. Not with clenched jaw detachment. With the clear recognition that you were never holding that column anyway. You were only pretending to, which is why it was exhausting. Epictetus knew this was not easy. He practiced it for years as a slave, in conditions that would unravel most philosophies. The practice does not make the loss smaller. It makes the loss correctly sized. And correct sizing is the only thing that frees your hands to do something about the part that is actually yours. The harsh truth is this. Every piece of bitterness you are still carrying is attached to a misclassification. Something you have placed in your column that does not belong to you. You are not holding it. You are being held by it. And the ruthless efficiency of Epictetus's teaching is that once you see the misclassification, you cannot unsee it. The thing does not disappear, but the delusion that you control it does. If any of what I've described tonight connects to something heavier, anxiety, grief, clinical level weight, please reach out to a mental health professional. Philosophy is powerful. It is not a substitute. We started tonight in Nicopolis with a former slave holding a single sentence and a Greek word inside it that most people mistranslate. You were waiting to find out what that word actually means. Here it is. Hēmin does not mean what you feel at peace about losing. It means what is genuinely, structurally, by nature, yours to determine. Your judgment, your attention, the quality of the choice you make in the next 60 seconds. Those are yours. Everything else you have been treating as yours is rented space, and you have been paying for it with the one currency you cannot earn back. Tonight, before you sleep, take one thing that has been sitting in your chest. Just sort it. One question, which column does it actually belong in? Not the column you want it in. The true one. If this landed, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly this kind of thinking. And leave a comment below. What is one thing you have been treating as yours that might belong in the other column? I read every one.